I'm Jason, a 35-year-old IT specialist who's always been the uncool brother to my social media star sister, Amanda. We used to be close until her influencer status changed everything. Last month at Fleming's Steakhouse, surrounded by her picture-perfect friends, she uttered those words that cut deeper than any knife. "This is why you're embarrassing for my influencer friends." I left that dinner humiliated, but what she didn't know was that I had the skills to uncover her fraudulent empire. What happened next changed both our lives forever. Before I dive into this story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you want to hear how I exposed my sister's fake lifestyle and got her arrested for fraud, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, this tale of revenge and justice is one you won't want to miss. Amanda and I grew up in a typical suburban household in Connecticut. Despite our 7-year age gap, we were inseparable as kids. I taught her how to ride a bike, helped with her homework, and scared away playground bullies. She was my little shadow, following me everywhere with admiration in her eyes. Our parents often commented on how unusual it was for siblings with such an age difference to get along so well. As we grew older, our paths naturally diverged. I was always practical and analytical, gravitating toward computers and technology. After high school, I pursued a computer science degree and eventually built a stable career as an IT security specialist for a financial firm. I valued stability, honesty, and living within my means. My apartment was modest but comfortable, my car reliable but not flashy. I found fulfillment in solving complex problems and maintaining a small circle of genuine friends. Amanda, however, was always more socially oriented. She had a natural charisma that drew people to her. In high school, she was popular and involved in theater, dance, and student government. Our parents expected her to flourish in college, but halfway through her sophomore year at NYU, she dropped out. That's when everything changed. "College is for people who don't know what they want," she told our shocked parents. "I'm building my brand on Instagram." Initially, our parents were devastated. They had saved for years to afford her education. But as Amanda's follower count grew from thousands to hundreds of thousands, their disappointment transformed into a strange sort of pride. Suddenly, our family gatherings became photo opportunities for her social media. Holiday dinners weren't about connecting anymore but staging the perfect family shot. Amanda would rearrange the table, dictate what everyone should wear, and spend more time editing photos than actually eating with us. The first time I noticed a significant change in our relationship was 3 years ago, at our father's 50th birthday party. Amanda arrived 3 hours late, made a grand entrance, took some photos with Dad, and then left early, claiming she had a brand emergency. Dad tried to hide his disappointment, but I saw it in his eyes. That night, I checked her Instagram and found she'd posted from a club downtown, not handling any emergency at all. When I confronted her via text about hurting Dad's feelings, her response chilled me. "You don't understand how this business works, Jason. Sometimes sacrifices have to be made for the greater good of my career." From that point on, Amanda began excluding me from events she organized. When our mother questioned my absence at her lavish 26th birthday party, Amanda claimed she'd invited me but I must have been too busy with computer stuff. The truth was, I never received an invitation. Our parents increasingly took Amanda's side in every disagreement. Her success dazzled them. They proudly told their friends about her collaborations with fashion brands and her appearances at influencer events. Meanwhile, my stable career and recent promotion barely warranted a mention at family gatherings. "Why can't you dress more like your sister's friends?" Mom once asked me before a family photo session Amanda had arranged. "Those old jeans don't look good on camera." The final straw came last Christmas when Amanda convinced our parents to postpone our traditional morning gift exchange because the lighting wasn't optimal for content. We ended up opening presents at 4 p.m. when the sunlight through the living room window created what she called the golden hour effect. I sat there watching my family perform Christmas for Amanda's phone, feeling like an extra in a production I never auditioned for. Over the past year, Amanda's attitude toward me shifted from merely excluding me to actively mocking me. She began making subtle digs about my appearance on her Instagram stories. Once, she posted a photo of us with the caption, "Throwback to before I learned about style." Thankfully, one of us did. Another time, during a rare family dinner, she asked if I ever considered getting a personal stylist, because my tech guy look wasn't doing me any favors. Each comment stung, but I brushed them off. She was my sister, after all. I kept telling myself this was just a phase, that the real Amanda was still in there somewhere beneath the filters and carefully crafted posts. I was wrong. 3 weeks ago, I received a text from Amanda inviting me to dinner at Lorenzo's, one of the most expensive Italian restaurants in the city. I was surprised but hopeful. Maybe she'd realized how distant we'd become, and wanted to reconnect. I even considered it might be her way of apologizing for her recent behavior. "Dinner with some friends at Lorenzo's this Friday. You should come. 8 p.m. Dress nice," her text read. I spent the next few days actually looking forward to the evening. I even went shopping for a new button-down shirt and slacks, something I rarely did for myself. The morning of the dinner, I got a haircut and even splurged on a professional shave. Looking in the mirror afterward, I felt good about myself. This dinner could be the turning point in our relationship. When I arrived at Lorenzo's, the host led me to a table in the center of the restaurant where Amanda was already seated with 4 other women. I recognized them from her Instagram posts. Tiffany, her closest influencer friend with over 2 million followers. Chloe, a beauty vlogger known for her elaborate makeup transformations. Brianna, a fashion influencer who apparently had just returned from Milan Fashion Week. And Zoe, a fitness model who had recently launched her own line of protein shakes. They were all immaculately dressed and made up, looking exactly like their filtered Instagram photos. I suddenly felt self-conscious about my new outfit, which now seemed woefully inadequate among their designer clothes. "Jason, you made it," Amanda said, standing to air-kiss my cheek. I noticed she was careful not to actually make contact with my face. "Everyone, this is my brother I told you about." I smiled and took the only empty seat, which happened to be at the far end of the table, practically isolated from the main conversation. "Nice to meet you all," I said, trying to sound confident. "So you work with computers or something, right?" Tiffany asked, barely looking up from her phone. "I'm an IT security specialist," I replied. "I help companies protect their data from hackers and—" "That sounds so complicated," Chloe interrupted, clearly not interested. "Amanda, did you hear back from that skincare brand we talked about?" Just like that, I was excluded from the conversation. I sat there awkwardly as they discussed brand deals, follower engagement rates, and something called algorithm hacking. Every few minutes, one of them would stand up to take a photo of their food or the table setting. I noticed that despite ordering expensive dishes, none of them ate more than a few bites. Plates full of $50 pasta were pushed aside after being photographed from multiple angles. I tried again to join the conversation when they began discussing a recent data privacy scandal involving a social media platform. "Actually, that's something I know a bit about," I offered. "The real issue wasn't just the data breach but the way the company—" "Jason," Amanda cut me off with a tight smile. "Nobody wants a lecture right now. We're having fun." The table went quiet for a moment. I took a sip of my water, feeling my face flush with embarrassment. "So, Amanda," Brianna changed the subject. "Tell us more about the mansion party you're planning. Is it true you booked DJ Maxwell?" Amanda launched into an elaborate description of what sounded like the party of the century, supposedly taking place at her new mansion. This was news to me. As far as I knew, Amanda still lived in a rented downtown apartment. Had she actually become successful enough to buy a mansion without telling our family? As the dinner progressed, I felt increasingly invisible. The women took numerous group selfies, none of which I was invited to join. They ordered expensive bottles of champagne and toasted to various achievements. A sponsored trip to Bali, a collaboration with a famous makeup artist, reaching follower milestones. I tried to be a good sport, smiling and nodding at appropriate times. When the waiter came by to refill my water glass, I accidentally bumped his arm while reaching for the bread basket. Water spilled across the table, narrowly missing Tiffany's phone but soaking the sleeve of Amanda's white designer blouse. The table erupted in gasps. Amanda jumped up, frantically dabbing at her sleeve with a napkin. "Oh my God, Jason!" she snapped. "Can you be any more clumsy? This is a $3,000 Valentino." "I'm sorry," I said, helping the waiter mop up the spill with my napkin. "It was an accident." That's when it happened. Amanda looked at her friends with an exasperated expression and said those words. "This is why you're embarrassing for my influencer friends. He just doesn't understand our world." The table went silent. Even Tiffany looked uncomfortable, glancing between Amanda and me. The waiter quickly finished cleaning and retreated. I sat there, the words echoing in my head as if she'd shouted them through a megaphone. I placed my napkin on the table and stood up. "I think I'll head out," I said quietly. "It was nice meeting you all." "Jason, don't be so sensitive," Amanda said, rolling her eyes. "Sit down. We're about to order dessert for the photos." "No thanks," I replied. "Enjoy your evening." As I walked out of the restaurant, I could hear them resuming their conversation as if nothing had happened. The cool night air hit my face as I stepped outside, and I realized my hands were shaking. The 7-minute drive home felt like hours as her words played on repeat in my mind. "This is why you're embarrassing for my influencer friends." By the time I parked in front of my apartment building, I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was angry. Really angry. For the first time, I saw Amanda clearly for what she had become, someone who valued appearance over authenticity, followers over family. The sister I had protected and loved had disappeared into a carefully constructed online persona that had no room for genuine relationships. I went to bed that night with a heaviness in my chest I hadn't felt since our grandmother passed away. Something significant had died, the last remnant of my relationship with the sister I once knew. The next day, I called my best friend Michael and my girlfriend Sarah to meet for lunch. I needed to talk to someone about what had happened. We met at our usual diner, where I recounted the disastrous dinner in detail. "She actually said you were embarrassing?" Sarah asked, her fork pausing midway to her mouth. "To your face?" "Not just to my face," I said. "She said it to her friends about me like I wasn't even there." Michael shook his head. "Man, that's cold. I'm sorry. The worst part is, I can't even recognize who she's become," I confessed. "The Amanda I grew up with would never have treated anyone that way, let alone her own brother." After lunch, Sarah suggested I take a look at Amanda's social media to see how she had portrayed the dinner. "I bet she didn't mention spilling water on her precious blouse," she said. That evening, I opened Instagram for the first time in months and navigated to Amanda's profile. Sure enough, there were several posts from the previous night. In one photo, all 5 women posed with their barely touched entrees captioned, "Dinner with my favorite people. So blessed to have authentic friendships in this industry. #squad goals, #blessed life, #luxury dining." I scrolled through more recent posts, and something caught my attention. Amanda had shared photos of a massive mansion, claiming it was her new home. "Finally sharing my new place with you all. Hard work pays off. Can't wait to host the most epic follower appreciation party next weekend. #dream home, #blessed, #luxury living." This didn't add up. Our parents had never mentioned Amanda buying a house, let alone a mansion. And just 3 months ago, when I'd helped her move some boxes, she was still in her downtown apartment complaining about the rent increase. Curiosity piqued, I began digging deeper. Working in IT security had taught me how to research effectively. I looked up property records for the address tagged in her post, no purchases under Amanda's name. The mansion was owned by a luxury rental company that specialized in short-term rentals for events and photo shoots. I kept digging. Amanda's posts showed her wearing different designer outfits every day, driving luxury cars, and dining at exclusive restaurants. But her spending didn't align with what I knew about influencer income at her level. Even successful influencers with hundreds of thousands of followers typically couldn't afford multiple $30,000 handbags and weekly shopping sprees at high-end boutiques. That's when I remembered something Tiffany had mentioned at dinner about a rental closet. I searched for designer clothing rental services and found several that catered specifically to social media influencers. For a monthly fee, they could borrow designer items, photograph themselves wearing them, and return them, all while presenting the illusion of owning a luxury wardrobe. The deeper I looked, the more concerning patterns emerged. Amanda had recently launched what she called an influencer masterclass, charging followers $2,000 for access to videos supposedly revealing her secrets to success. The sales page promised participants would learn how to quit your job and make six figures as an influencer in 6 months guaranteed. Using my technical skills, I accessed the course content through a backdoor in her poorly secured website. What I found was shocking: generic information available for free on YouTube, plagiarized content from actual marketing experts, and completely unrealistic promises. The course had apparently enrolled over 300 people. That was $600,000 for essentially worthless information. Even more disturbing were her product promotions. Amanda regularly endorsed skincare products, weight loss supplements, and investment opportunities to her followers, always with a personal testimonial about how they had changed her life. I found evidence that she was being paid substantial amounts for these endorsements without disclosing them as advertisements, a clear violation of FTC guidelines. But the most alarming discovery came when I looked into the charity she had been promoting heavily. Amanda had been collecting donations for what she called the Digital Dreams Foundation, supposedly helping underprivileged youth access technology. A quick business entity search revealed the foundation wasn't registered as a legitimate charity. The donation link led to a private PayPal account. Based on her posts about donation milestones, she had collected over $200,000 that couldn't be accounted for. I sat back in my chair, stunned by what I'd uncovered. My sister wasn't just living a fake life online, she was actively defrauding people who trusted her. And now she was planning this massive party at a rental mansion she was presenting as her own home, likely to attract more victims to her schemes. I faced a moral dilemma. This was my sister, despite everything. But she was hurting people, taking advantage of their trust and admiration. Could I really stand by and let that continue? I called Sarah and Michael over to show them what I'd found. "This is serious, Jason," Sarah said after reviewing the evidence. "What she's doing with that fake charity alone could be a federal offense." "You need to talk to her," Michael advised. "Maybe she doesn't realize how serious this is. She could face real legal consequences." I nodded, deciding to give Amanda one chance to make things right. I would approach her directly, show her what I'd discovered, and urge her to shut down the fraudulent operations before things went too far. The next day, I drove to Amanda's apartment and knocked on her door. She opened it wearing loungewear, looking nothing like her Instagram persona. Her expression soured when she saw me. "Jason? What are you doing here?" she asked, not inviting me in. "We need to talk," I said firmly. "It's important." She reluctantly let me in, quickly closing the door behind me as if worried someone might see inside her decidedly unluxurious apartment. "I know what you're doing, Amanda," I said without preamble. "The fake mansion, the designer rental clothes, the fraudulent charity, the worthless masterclass. All of it." Her face paled momentarily before she composed herself. "I don't know what you're talking about. My business is legitimate and successful." I pulled out my phone and showed her the evidence I'd compiled. "This isn't just unethical, Amanda. Some of it is illegal. The fake charity alone could send you to prison." Instead of showing remorse, her expression hardened. "You're just jealous," she spat. "You've always been jealous of my success. Your boring tech job and ordinary life make you resent me. This isn't success. I countered. It's fraud. And people are getting hurt. You need to shut down the charity, refund the masterclass participants, and come clean to your followers. Amanda laughed bitterly. Come clean? And ruin everything I've built? Not happening. And if you try to interfere with my business, I'll make sure Mom and Dad never speak to you again. What are you talking about? I've already told them you've been acting strange, making up lies about me because you're jealous. They believe me, Jason. They always do. So back off, or I'll make sure you're cut off from this family completely. I left Amanda's apartment in shock. Not only was she unrepentant, but she had already been poisoning our parents against me. That night, I called Mom and received a cold reception, confirming Amanda's threat wasn't empty. It was clear talking wouldn't work. Amanda was too far gone, too invested in her fraudulent lifestyle to back down. And now, with her mansion party approaching, an event that would likely be used to launch more scams, I realized I needed a different approach. That evening, I sat in my apartment staring at the evidence I'd collected about Amanda's fraudulent activities. The rational part of me said I should simply report her to the authorities and let them handle it. But something deeper, a mixture of hurt and betrayal, wanted her to face more personal consequences for what she'd done, not just to her followers, but to our family and to me. The next morning, I began researching the mansion she had rented for her party. The property was an older estate, built in the 1980s but renovated to look modern and luxurious. Through some careful digging in public records, I found the contact information for the actual owner, a retired businessman named Gregory Winters who lived in Florida and managed the property through a local rental company. I called Mr. Winters, introducing myself as a concerned neighbor. I've noticed the property is being advertised for a massive party next weekend, I explained. The woman renting it is claiming to own the house and has invited hundreds of people. Mr. Winters was immediately concerned. The rental agreement specifically limits guests to 50 people maximum, he said. And of course, claiming ownership is completely unacceptable. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. He promised to contact the rental company but mentioned he wouldn't be able to fly back in time to handle it personally. This gave me an opening to implement the plan forming in my mind. Next, I did some research on the mansion's infrastructure. The rental listing mentioned the property had been updated with smart home features but noted that the electrical system was still charming and original. Translation: old and potentially problematic. The security system was also described as basic, suggesting it wasn't particularly sophisticated. I reached out to a former colleague who specialized in electrical systems and described the house based on the listing photos. A place like that would have a centralized breaker panel, probably in the basement or utility room, he explained. If the system is original from the 80s, it likely wouldn't handle a large party's power demands very well. This information was crucial. If I could locate the breaker panel, I could cut power to the mansion at a strategic moment during Amanda's party. It would be a relatively harmless way to disrupt her event while also capturing her reaction on camera, potentially revealing her true nature to her followers. Speaking of cameras, I purchased 4 small, high-quality wireless cameras that could operate on battery power and transmit footage to my phone. These would be critical for documenting what happened at the party, especially if Amanda made incriminating statements in the chaos of a power outage. I spent the next few days organizing all the evidence of Amanda's fraudulent activities into a secure encrypted folder. Screenshots of her fake charity solicitations, the masterclass scam, undisclosed paid promotions for potentially harmful products, and documentation of her false claims about her lifestyle. I also prepared an anonymous tip for the police with specific details about the charity fraud, ready to send if necessary. When I shared my plan with Michael and Sarah, they had mixed reactions. I understand why you want to do this, Michael said cautiously. But isn't cutting the power to her party going a bit far? What if someone gets hurt in the dark? The house has emergency lighting, I assured him. And I'm not planning to leave it off for long, just enough to create confusion and hopefully catch Amanda admitting something incriminating when she thinks no one can hear her. Sarah was more supportive. She needs a wake-up call, Jason. She's scamming vulnerable people and treating her own family like dirt. Sometimes people don't change until they face real consequences. Still, I wrestled with my conscience. Was I taking this too far? Was I letting hurt feelings drive me to excessive revenge? But then I remembered the fake charity. $200,000 taken from people who thought they were helping underprivileged kids. I thought about the followers who spent their savings on a worthless masterclass, believing Amanda's promises of financial freedom. This wasn't just about my hurt feelings. It was about preventing further harm. 3 days before the party, I drove by the mansion to familiarize myself with the layout. The rental company was already setting up tents and lighting in the expansive backyard. I parked down the street and walked past, noting potential entry points and the location of what looked like a utility room on the side of the house. The day before the party, I finalized my plan. 1. Arrive early and position myself near the property. 2. Place cameras at strategic locations before guests arrive. 3. Wait for the party to reach its peak. 4. Locate and access the breaker panel. 5. Cut the power during Amanda's main presentation. 6. Capture her unfiltered reaction on camera. 7. Restore power after a few minutes. 8. Use any incriminating evidence to persuade Amanda to come clean, or failing that, submit it to authorities. That night I barely slept. Part of me still hoped Amanda would somehow come to her senses, that I wouldn't need to go through with this plan. But the sister I knew was long gone, replaced by someone who valued followers over family, and image over integrity. Tomorrow would be the day of reckoning. Saturday arrived, the day of Amanda's big party. According to her Instagram, the event was billed as an exclusive follower appreciation gathering at my personal estate. She had been building hype for weeks, promising appearances by minor celebrities, a performance by DJ Maxwell, gourmet catering, and the launch of an exciting new opportunity for her most dedicated followers. I arrived in the neighborhood at 4 p.m., 3 hours before the party's official start time. Dressed in khaki pants and a polo shirt that made me look like part of the event staff, I parked 2 blocks away and walked to the property carrying a small backpack with my cameras and tools. The mansion was already buzzing with activity. Catering trucks lined the circular driveway, and workers carried trays of food and elaborate floral arrangements inside. A stage was being set up near the pool, and string lights were being hung throughout the garden. I spotted Amanda directing staff with imperious gestures, dressed in a designer jumpsuit and oversized sunglasses. Taking advantage of the pre-party chaos, I circulated around the property, placing my wireless cameras in inconspicuous locations, one in a potted plant near the stage where Amanda would likely make her announcement, another overlooking the main gathering area, a third near the entrance, and the last one in a hallway leading to the kitchen. Each camera connected to an app on my phone, allowing me to monitor multiple areas simultaneously. As I placed the last camera, I overheard Amanda speaking to Tiffany near the pool. "The investor contacts alone are worth their investment," she was saying. "These people are desperate to feel exclusive. They'll pay $10,000 just to be in the same WhatsApp group as a minor celebrity." Tiffany laughed. "And they actually think you own this place? That's priceless." "People believe what they want to believe," Amanda replied with a shrug. "By Monday, I'll have enough sign-ups to cover the rental cost 10 times over." I slipped away before they noticed me, my resolve strengthened by their callous attitude. While the catering staff was busy in the kitchen, I located the utility room on the side of the house. As expected, it contained the main breaker panel, an older model that would be simple to manipulate. I took photos of the panel layout so I could quickly identify the main power switch when the time came. By 7 p.m., guests began arriving. I positioned myself in a shadowy corner of the garden, monitoring the camera feeds on my phone. The crowd was a mix of young influencers, aspiring content creators, and what appeared to be regular followers who had likely paid for the privilege of attending. Staff checked names against a list before allowing entry, but security was minimal, just two bored-looking men at the front door. Around 8 p.m., the party was in full swing. DJ Maxwell was playing, drinks were flowing, and the garden was packed with people taking selfies and videos at various Instagram-worthy stations set up around the property. Amanda moved through the crowd like a queen holding court, stopping for photos with awestruck followers who seemed thrilled just to be in her presence. At 9:30 p.m., Amanda took the stage. The music stopped, and spotlights focused on her as she tapped a microphone. "Welcome, everyone, to my home," she announced to cheers and applause. "I'm so grateful to have you all here in my personal space to celebrate our amazing community." She launched into a speech about her journey, from ordinary girl to successful influencer, embellishing the story with false details about hardships she'd overcome. I watched on my phone as she expertly worked the crowd, building toward what was clearly her sales pitch. "Tonight I'm offering something special to just 50 of you," she continued, her voice taking on an urgent quality. "My new influencer investment circle is unlike anything I've offered before. For a one-time membership fee of $10,000, you'll gain access to exclusive investment opportunities usually reserved for the ultra-wealthy." The crowd murmured with excitement. Amanda continued, describing vague connections and inside information that would supposedly generate massive returns. It was clearly another scam, targeting the most vulnerable and desperate of her followers. This was my moment. I slipped into the utility room, located the main breaker switch, and waited for Amanda to reach the climax of her pitch. "The last time I offered something like this, members tripled their investment in just 3 months," she claimed, a blatant lie based on my research. "But you need to commit tonight because—" I flipped the main breaker. Instantly, the mansion plunged into darkness. The music cut out, the spotlights died, and the crowd gasped in collective surprise. Only the emergency exit signs cast a faint glow over the confused guests. Through my camera feeds, which were still functioning on battery power, I watched chaos unfold. People bumped into each other, some laughed nervously, others looked concerned. On stage, Amanda was frantically whispering to her assistant. "Try the backup generator," she hissed. "This cannot happen right now. I'm about to close 50 people at 10,000 each." The assistant hurried off while Amanda attempted to calm the crowd. "Just a minor technical issue, everyone. The staff is handling it. This is what happens when you let the rental company handle the electrical instead of upgrading it yourself." I froze. She had just admitted, in front of hundreds of guests, that the mansion was rented, not owned as she had been claiming. Several people in the crowd exchanged confused glances. Things got even better when Tiffany rushed to Amanda's side on stage. Unaware that my camera was picking up their conversation, Amanda vented her frustration. "This is a disaster. If I don't close these sales tonight, I can't make the down payment on the rental property in the Hamptons for next month's content shoots. And the charity foundation numbers are due for review soon. I need this cash to cover the discrepancies." "Can't you just use the masterclass money like last time?" Tiffany asked. "I already spent that on the Birkin bag and the lease for the Porsche," Amanda replied, panic evident in her voice. "I'm leveraged to the max, Tiff. This party has to work." Their entire conversation was being recorded in perfect clarity. I couldn't have scripted a better confession if I'd tried. After about 5 minutes, long enough to capture plenty of incriminating statements, but not so long as to create a dangerous situation, I was about to restore power when a commotion erupted at the front entrance. Through the camera feed, I saw an older man in an expensive suit arguing with the security guards. "I own this property," he was shouting. "I flew in from Florida as soon as I heard about this unauthorized event." It was Gregory Winters, the actual owner, who had apparently decided to handle the situation personally despite what he told me on the phone. The security guards, confused about who to believe, eventually let him in. Mr. Winters stormed through the darkened house toward the garden, a rental company representative, and 2 police officers following behind him. This was about to get much more interesting than I had planned. I quickly restored power to avoid suspicion, and lights flickered back on throughout the property. The music resumed mid-song, creating a surreal moment as Mr. Winters burst onto the patio. "Who is responsible for this event?" he demanded loudly. The crowd parted, and all eyes turned to Amanda, still on stage. Her face, for once not perfectly composed for the camera, registered shock and fear. "I am," she said, quickly recovering her poise. "Welcome to my home. Is there a problem? Your home?" Mr. Winters laughed incredulously. "Young lady, I've owned this property for 20 years. You signed a weekend rental agreement for a small gathering limited to 50 guests. This is a clear violation of our contract." The crowd began murmuring. People pulled out phones, recording the confrontation. Amanda's carefully constructed facade was crumbling in real time, in front of hundreds of witnesses. "There must be some confusion," Amanda attempted, her voice losing its confident edge. "My assistant handles these details." "Save it," Mr. Winters interrupted. "The police are here because we've also received noise complaints from neighbors. This event is over. Everyone needs to leave immediately." The next 30 minutes were chaotic. Guests reluctantly filed out, many looking confused or angry. Some demanded refunds for the tickets they'd purchased to attend. The celebrities Amanda had paid to appear slipped out quietly through a side exit. DJ Maxwell packed up his equipment, insisting on being paid in full despite the abbreviated performance. I retrieved my cameras amid the confusion and made my way to my car. As I drove home, I felt a complex mix of emotions: satisfaction that Amanda's deception had been exposed, but also sadness that it had come to this. The sister I had grown up with was now facing the consequences of her actions in a very public way. What I didn't realize was how quickly things would escalate from here. The videos of the confrontation were already spreading across social media, with hashtags like #MansionGate and #InfluencerExposed trending by midnight. Amanda's carefully constructed world was about to collapse completely, and I hadn't even released the most damaging evidence yet. By Sunday morning, clips of the mansion confrontation had gone viral. #MansionGate was trending nationally, with hundreds of thousands of people sharing and commenting on what had happened. Amanda's follower count was dropping by the minute as the internet turned against her. Her Instagram was flooded with angry comments from followers who felt deceived. I watched it all unfold from my apartment, still processing the fact that my plan had worked far better than I had anticipated. I hadn't expected the property owner to show up or for Amanda to make such explicit admissions about her fraudulent activities on camera. Part of me felt guilty about the public humiliation she was experiencing, but another part recognized that this was the natural consequence of the deception she had been perpetrating for years. Around noon, my phone rang. It was Amanda. "Did you have something to do with last night?" she demanded, her voice raw with anger and what sounded like fear. "What happened to this is my home," I replied calmly. "You bastard," she hissed. "You ruined everything. The rental company is suing me for breach of contract. The celebrities are demanding full payment despite leaving early. My sponsors are dropping me left and right. Maybe you shouldn't have been lying to everyone," I suggested. "Including your own family. I need your help," she said, her tone suddenly shifting to pleading. "You know about legal stuff, right? There's got to be a way to spin this, to make it go away." "There's no spinning fraud, Amanda," I said firmly. "Especially not the charity fraud." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "What are you talking about?" "The Digital Dreams Foundation. Your fake charity that's collected over $200,000. I know all about it. And so will the authorities if you don't make this right." "You wouldn't," she whispered. "I'm your sister." "A sister who called me embarrassing to my face and tried to turn our parents against me," I reminded her. "Make it right, Amanda. Refund the charity donations. Refund your masterclass students. Come clean about everything, or I'll have no choice but to turn over the evidence." She hung up without responding. I didn't expect her to actually follow my advice. Amanda had never been one to admit wrongdoing, but I hoped the threat might at least prevent her from starting any new scams while she dealt with the fallout from the party. The next day, I received a call from our mother. Her voice was tight with anger. "What did you do to your sister? She's devastated. Her career is in tatters. Did she tell you she's been running a fake charity?" I asked. "Or that she's been scamming her followers out of thousands of dollars with worthless courses?" "That's ridiculous," Mom replied automatically, but I detected a note of uncertainty in her voice. "Amanda would never do something like that." "Ask her about the Digital Dreams Foundation," I suggested. "Ask her where the donation money went. Ask her why she told everyone she owned that mansion when it was just a weekend rental." Mom went quiet. "I'll call you back," she finally said and hung up. 3 days after the party, I was at work when Sarah called me urgently. "Turn on the news," she said. "Channel 8. Now." I pulled up the local news website on my computer and was shocked to see Amanda's face on the screen. The headline read, "Local influencer under investigation for charity fraud." According to the report, several followers had filed complaints with the State Attorney General's office regarding the Digital Dreams Foundation. Preliminary investigation had revealed that no such charity was registered, and donations had been funneled into Amanda's personal accounts. The reporter mentioned that the investigation had been sparked by an anonymous tip containing detailed financial records. The evidence I had compiled but hadn't yet submitted. Someone else had beaten me to it. Perhaps one of Amanda's disgruntled followers had done their own investigation after the mansion incident, or maybe someone within her inner circle had turned on her. Regardless, the consequences I had threatened were now unfolding without my direct intervention. That evening, Detective Harrison from the Economic Crimes Unit called me. "Mr. Jason Carter? I'm investigating your sister, Amanda Carter, regarding allegations of wire fraud and charity scam operations. We'd like to speak with you as a family member who might have relevant information." I agreed to an interview the following day. When I arrived at the police station, I brought copies of all the evidence I had gathered. For 3 hours, I walked Detective Harrison through Amanda's various schemes: the fake charity, the worthless masterclass, the undisclosed paid promotions, the fabricated lifestyle. "How did you come to possess all this information?" Harrison asked, clearly impressed by the thoroughness of my documentation. "I work in IT security," I explained. "When I became concerned about my sister's activities, I used publicly available information to investigate. I was planning to submit this anonymously before someone else apparently did." "Well, this certainly strengthens our case," Harrison said. "Based on the evidence we've gathered independently, combined with what you've provided, we have more than enough to proceed with charges." 2 days later, Amanda was arrested at her apartment. The media covered her being escorted out of the building in handcuffs, a far cry from the glamorous image she had cultivated online. She was charged with wire fraud, charity fraud, and deceptive business practices. Her bail was set at $50,000, which our shell-shocked parents paid. The family fallout was severe. Our parents, finally confronted with irrefutable evidence of Amanda's deception, struggled to reconcile the daughter they thought they knew with the con artist revealed in the investigation. Mom called me in tears the night after Amanda's arrest. "Why didn't she just tell us she was struggling?" she asked, her voice breaking. "We would have helped her. We wouldn't have judged her for not being as successful as she pretended to be." "I think she got caught up in the fantasy," I suggested gently. "The more followers she gained, the more pressure she felt to maintain the illusion. Eventually, the real Amanda disappeared behind the persona she created." In the weeks that followed, more victims came forward. The total amount Amanda had allegedly defrauded from followers exceeded $400,000 when all her schemes were tallied. Tiffany and the other influencer friends quickly distanced themselves, claiming they had no knowledge of her fraudulent activities. Some even monetized their connection to the scandal, posting "My Truth About Amanda" videos that garnered millions of views. Amanda's lawyer, a slick defense attorney named Bradley Cooper, advised her to plead not guilty despite the overwhelming evidence. But when presented with my recordings from the party night, in which she explicitly admitted to financial improprieties, he changed his recommendation to seeking a plea deal. The prosecutor, Catherine Williams, was not feeling particularly generous. Ms. Carter deliberately targeted vulnerable individuals who trusted her, she stated at a press conference. She exploited that trust for personal gain with no regard for the financial and emotional harm she caused. We intend to pursue appropriate penalties that reflect the seriousness of these offenses. 3 months after her arrest, I visited Amanda in jail while she awaited her plea hearing. She looked smaller somehow, without her carefully applied makeup and designer clothes. The orange jumpsuit was about as far from her Instagram aesthetic as possible. "Why are you here?" she asked as she sat across from me at the visitation table. "Because you're still my sister," I replied simply. She looked down at her hands. "I lost everything because of you." "You lost everything because you built a life on lies," I corrected her. "It was always going to collapse eventually. You don't understand the pressure," she said bitterly. "Once you create this perfect image, you have to maintain it. Followers expect more and more. Bigger house, nicer car, more exotic vacations. The real sponsorship money never matched what I was pretending to earn. So you turned to fraud instead of being honest? Being honest doesn't pay the bills in my world," she snapped. "Nobody wants to follow someone ordinary. They want the fantasy." I shook my head. "You could have built something genuine. Used your influence for good. Instead, you hurt people who trusted you. You hurt our family. You hurt me." For the first time, a flicker of shame crossed her face. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she admitted quietly. "It started with small exaggerations. Then bigger ones. Then the charity seemed like a good way to raise quick cash when I was behind on rent. Before I knew it, I was juggling so many lies I couldn't keep track anymore. And now? Now I'm probably going to prison," she said, her voice cracking. "And when I get out, I'll have nothing. No followers, no career, no reputation. Nothing. You'll have a chance to start over," I suggested. "Build something real this time." She looked at me skeptically. "Why would you even care after what I did to you?" I considered the question carefully. "Because I remember the sister who used to follow me around when we were kids. The real Amanda is still in there somewhere." She didn't respond, but as the guard came to lead her back to her cell, I saw tears in her eyes for the first time since this all began. 2 weeks later, Amanda accepted a plea deal. In exchange for a guilty plea and full cooperation in identifying other influencers engaged in similar fraudulent practices, she received a sentence of 18 months in prison plus 3 years of probation. She was also ordered to pay full restitution to her victims, which would likely take years given the substantial amount involved. At the sentencing hearing, Judge Montgomery delivered a scathing assessment of Amanda's actions. "In an age where social media influence is a form of power, you abuse that power to exploit the trust of your followers. Your actions were not momentary lapses in judgment, but a sustained pattern of deception and fraud. This court cannot ignore the significant financial and emotional harm you caused to hundreds of victims who believed in you." As Amanda was led away to begin serving her sentence, our eyes met briefly across the courtroom. In that moment, I saw something I hadn't seen in years, a glimpse of the sister I had once known, buried beneath layers of deception and self-delusion. It gave me a small hope that perhaps, when this was all over, there might be a chance for her to find her way back to authenticity. 6 months have passed since Amanda began serving her sentence. The media frenzy around #MansionGate has largely subsided, though occasionally new articles appear analyzing the downfall of an influencer as a cautionary tale for the social media age. For me, these months have been a time of processing complex emotions, relief that the deception has ended, guilt over my role in Amanda's public exposure, and grief for the relationship we once had. My parents and I have slowly rebuilt our connection. Initially, they struggled with feeling both betrayed by Amanda and guilty for enabling her behavior for so long. We were so proud of her success that we ignored the warning signs, Dad admitted during a difficult conversation over dinner. Maybe if we had questioned things more, she wouldn't have gone so far down this path. Amanda made her own choices, I reminded him. We can't take responsibility for that. In an unexpected development, I started a blog called Digital Discernment, about recognizing online scams and fraudulent influencer practices. Drawing on my IT security background, I offer tips for consumers to protect themselves from the kinds of schemes Amanda had perpetrated. The blog gained traction quickly, with many former victims of similar scams finding it helpful in their recovery. Some of Amanda's former followers reached out to me after discovering I was her brother. One woman, Melissa, had spent her entire savings on Amanda's masterclass, believing it would allow her to quit her nursing job and support her children as an influencer. I felt so stupid when everything came out, she told me over coffee. But your blog helped me understand how these scams are designed to exploit hope. I don't blame myself so much anymore. Connecting with people like Melissa has been healing. While I couldn't undo the harm Amanda caused, I could at least help her victims make sense of their experience and avoid similar pitfalls in the future. 3 months into her sentence, I received a letter from Amanda. The handwriting was neat but smaller than I remembered, filling 2 pages with reflections I never expected from her. The strangest thing about prison, she wrote, is the total absence of filters, both literal and metaphorical. For the first time in years, I'm seeing myself clearly, without the constant validation of likes and comments. It's terrifying and somehow liberating at the same time. I've been thinking about what you said during your visit. About building something genuine. I don't know if I even remember how to be genuine anymore. The line between Amanda the person and Amanda the brand disappeared so long ago. I'm sorry for what I said at that dinner. You weren't embarrassing. You were real in a way I couldn't handle because it highlighted how fake I'd become. I'm sorry for trying to turn Mom and Dad against you. And I'm sorry for forgetting what it means to be a sister. The letter concluded with a request. When I get out, I'll need to figure out who I am without the followers and filters. I might need your help with that. If you're willing. After receiving her letter, I decided to help Amanda plan for life after prison. During my next visit, I brought information about educational programs for inmates and resources for rebuilding a career with a criminal record. For the first time in our adult lives, we had a conversation that wasn't performance or manipulation, just 2 siblings talking honestly about difficult realities. I can't go back to influencing, she acknowledged. Not that anyone would trust me anyway. Maybe that's not a bad thing, I suggested. You're smart and creative, Amanda. Those skills can be used for something meaningful. I don't even know what meaningful means anymore, she admitted. Everything was about appearances for so long. You'll figure it out. And I'll help if you want. My relationship with Sarah has grown stronger through all of this. She stood by me during the investigation and aftermath, offering perspective when my emotions clouded my judgment. Last month, I proposed, and she said yes. We're planning a small, genuine wedding, the opposite of the elaborately staged events Amanda used to post about. This experience has taught me several profound lessons. First, authenticity isn't just a buzzword, it's the foundation of meaningful relationships and a fulfilling life. The constant pursuit of external validation creates a hollow existence that can never be satisfied. Amanda chased more followers, more likes, more engagement, but it was never enough. The goalpost kept moving, driving her to increasingly desperate and unethical actions. Second, our online personas can become dangerous traps if we let them define us. The gap between Amanda's real life and her Instagram representation grew so wide that maintaining the illusion became a full-time job, then a criminal enterprise. The more she invested in the fake version of herself, the harder it became to turn back. Third, true success isn't measured in followers or likes but in the authentic connections we build and the positive impact we have on others' lives. My modest IT career may never attract the attention Amanda's influencer persona did, but I go to bed each night knowing my work has integrity. Last week, I visited Amanda again. 8 months into her sentence, I've noticed subtle changes in her demeanor. The performative confidence has been replaced by a quieter, more thoughtful presence. She's enrolled in the prison's computer skills program and has been mentoring younger inmates. "I've been thinking about what I could do when I get out," she told me. "Maybe something with consumer protection, warning people about the scams I used to run. A way to make amends." "That sounds like a good start," I encouraged her. As our visit ended, Amanda said something that gave me hope for our future relationship. "You know what's weird? I have no followers, no platform, no status anymore. By all the metrics I used to care about, I'm a complete failure. But I feel more like myself than I have in years." "That's because you are yourself," I replied. "No filters needed." On the drive home, I reflected on our journey. The sister I knew growing up disappeared for a while behind a carefully curated online persona, but glimpses of the real Amanda are emerging again through the cracks of her shattered facade. It will be a long road to rebuild trust, with me, with our parents, and with the public she deceived, but for the first time in years, I believe she's walking that road as her authentic self. The influencer known as @AmandaGlam is gone, her carefully constructed empire of lies dismantled. But my sister Amanda is finding her way back, one genuine moment at a time. And that's worth more than 1,000,000 followers could ever be. So what about you? Have you ever discovered someone in your life wasn't being authentic? How did you handle it? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life stories about family, redemption, and the search for authenticity in a filtered world. Remember, in a world obsessed with appearance, being genuine is your greatest power. Thank you for listening, and I wish you the courage to always choose authenticity over approval.